Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and now Blue Sky at Hawk Blogger. And here we are with Mike Randle of FTN Fantasy, one of our favorite guests, and certainly our first sponsor, our first partner for the show over at FTN. Make sure you use promo code HBAM to get 15% off. Be a subscriber because this is going to be an episode you're going to see the power of StatsHub. I'm going to show you some things a little bit later that are going to blow your mind about what the Seahawks are facing, all thanks to FTN StatsHub. Mike, how was your Thanksgiving, my friend?
It was very good. Went up to Massachusetts, enjoyed it. Ate during the second game, which was a total snooze fest,
Yes.
but enjoyed the first and the third one, especially coming home. And nice one for the Seahawks, Brian. Doesn't matter how you get it. You got it. You escaped. And you're in first place here in the division. Well done.
I know. First place 2 weeks in a row, alone in first place here. And, you know, it was a weird game, my friend. It was a weird game. And the Seahawks have already made some response to that game by waiving Laviska Shenault Jr., who had one fumble. I got to say, just a little nit for NFL stats keepers. A muffed kickoff or a muffed punt is not a fumble. I don't understand that. So the Seahawks only officially had 2 fumbles on kickoff returns against the Jets, but for my money, they had at least 3, and Laviska Shenault's had more than that over the course of the season. So, yeah, it was quite a juxtaposition between a Jets kick return team that was gaining 40-plus yards every return and the Seahawks who couldn't even catch the ball.
Yeah, very true. And the Jets are just, there was a couple plays there that I was worried about for you, Brian. The big pass down the sideline to Devontae Adams with the offensive pass interference, which was fine. They are a struggling team, but they're still going to make plays at home. They got up early on, you're 14-0, but you found your way to grind back, and that's what the great teams do. That's what the playoffs teams are going to do here. So it was a great win for you, road win. Now we'll see if we can keep it going this week against the division rival.
Yeah, I kept looking at that Jets team, and the betting model for FTN picked the Jets to win that game. The non-betting model, just the Brian model, picked the Jets to win that game. And to be totally honest, sure looked like that was going to happen for a lot of that contest. But for all the complaints that Jets fans have or Jets players have about the penalties in that game, that's what started to reveal itself about why this team is 3-8, now 3-9. They just made a lot of losing plays and ended up losing a game they really shouldn't have lost. So Seahawks fans are happy to take it and run, get back to Seattle. And Mike, this is a big week, obviously. They play the Cardinals for the second time in 3 weeks. And before we get into that game, there's a few interesting games on the docket this week. And so starts with the Thursday night game, the Packers against the Lions. Curious what the model is telling us about that game.
Model no edge right now at 1.3% edge on the Lions, minus 3.5, and no edge on the total. I will tell you, Brian, I'm on the Packers in this game. The regression is just real, and the Lions are great and they're wonderful. I predicted beginning of the season that the Packers are going to face the Lions in the NFC Championship game, and I believe that. I think the Packers defense is playing much better. I think Jordan Love's interceptions and turnovers have slowed down. They should have a full bevy of weapons this week. I will take the 3.5, the hook being the key, any single time in this matchup. Love the Lions here, but they're not going to win every game. And I think this one here is going to go to the Packers. A little payback for the Lions winning outdoors at Green Bay earlier this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's just going to be a fantastic matchup. I don't know what to make of the Packers quite yet, or the Vikings. I know what to make of the Lions. I have nothing but respect for them. The Packers, I don't know yet. And I think the NFC is just not that great in general. But if you were giving me the Packers and the Eagles right now, I think I'd pretty clearly take the Eagles. I just don't know if the Packers are quite as physical. The Vikings certainly are, but I'm just not sure that they're as skilled. And they, thankfully for Seahawks fans, were able to pull out a win against the Cardinals. this past weekend in a game where Kyler Murray just made some bonehead plays that really cost that team. But the Vikings play the Falcons in a game that has some interesting implications. The Vikings are going to be at home. There's some starting to be rumbles about whether Kirk Cousins is going to survive past this season as the starter for the Falcons. I think he now leads the NFL in interceptions. Geno Smith says, "Thank you very much." What's your take on that game? What's the model telling us about the Falcons and the Vikings?
Yeah, a couple things here about that matchup. And I put this out with our NFL splits tool where you can just look at players and isolate teams. Kirk Cousins this year in the 2 games against Tampa Bay, Brian, he has 392 passing yards per game, 31 fantasy points, 4 passing touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions. Against the other 10 teams, Brian, he's averaging 226 passing yards. That's 170 passing yards less. Only 0.9, so not even a touchdown per game in the rest, 1.2 interceptions, and only 10 fantasy points. So he has really feasted on Tampa Bay. On our model this week, again, no edge either way. You have a Falcons team against a Vikings team. They're both concerning here. I was concerned that the Vikings could not move the ball for the majority of that game against Arizona. And look, kudos to Arizona for improving their defense, which was 32nd in DVOA to start the season here at FTN. But their defense, you can't move the ball at home with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, who fumbled again. TJ Hawkinson is back, and you can't put up a touchdown in the first half. That's concerning. So it's 2 teams here with a lot of questions. We have no edge in our model for either team in this game.
Yeah, it's predicting a 26-21 win for the Vikings. I think that seems about right. And these games, the Packers and the Vikings, become teams that you really want to pay attention to as Seahawks fans, because while all eyes are on this Cardinals game this weekend for what very well could be the division, the Vikings and Packers are coming to town right after. So those will be, I'm really curious to see how those games play out. So let's turn our attention to the NFC West. I almost said AFC West. It's been a while since I could talk about the AFC West. That was a crazy game last night for sure.
Yep.
The Browns and the Broncos, but Seahawks against the Cardinals. They travel to Arizona, and the Cardinals are 2.5 point favorites, and the betting model really likes Arizona in this game, at least from a projected points perspective, not necessarily an edge perspective. What are we seeing there?
Yeah, the issue is going to be that the Cardinals defense is exceeding expectations right now, and they're going to have to get pressure on Seattle. That battle in the trenches is going to be critical. The other issue, Brian, is going to be for a Seahawks team that's been pretty good. And usually for years, the Seahawks were struggling against tight ends. You've been pretty middle of the road this year against tight ends. But the last time you played Arizona, Trey McBride, 15 targets, 12 for $133. Of course, no touchdown because he's not going to score touchdowns this year. But that is the issue, is that we kind of see this game in our betting model as a close game. We have a 27-20, so we think both teams are going to put up points, but only 3 there, and that number could drop to 2.5. I guess the question becomes with the model, do we think Seattle can sweep Arizona? And that's really where the question is. And the Cardinals defense has played so well. That is the biggest concern. Of course, there's some other things baked into it, the uncertainty with DK Metcalf and things like that. But this is a big matchup. We do see Arizona getting it, having it split, but I think that's the reason. You've been great against Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson can't kill you. The question is, can you limit Trey McBride while continuing to stonewall their running game? Because in that first matchup, you did a brilliant job. James Conner, 7 rushes, 8 yards. Trey Benson, 4 rushes, 18 yards. And that was pretty much it. That is the question. I think it's a battle of the defensive fronts.
Yeah, well, DVOA, which, by the way, you get only at FTN Fantasy. Use promo code HBAM, gets you 15% off, less than $8 a month. I'm a subscriber. That's how I know all these things. Arizona's up to 7th in the NFL in DVOA. Seahawks are down there at 18th. So from a DVOA perspective, I think Arizona gained quite a bit of respect from DVOA based off their game in Minnesota this past week, and where they really outplayed Minnesota pretty much the whole game. They are 7th in offense, 12th in defense, and 16th in special teams. So This was a pretty big week. I think they moved up from being 11th the week before. Yeah, so a 27-20 win is a pretty large projected difference in this game. I can see it, but I'm going to break this game down a lot more over the next day, and I will say I don't see that much of an edge for Arizona. I think that's a little generous, but that's coming from a Seahawks fan and follower. So,
well, especially Brian, to be fair, because your run defense has been superior. With the injuries that we talked about a month ago, they've gotten healthy. They've played well. The question is, can the Seahawks get their offense together? The weapons are there. The talent is there. JSN is becoming an elite wide receiver in this league. That is the issue. Can you get the fluidity going on the offense? Because you're only 20th per DVOA, but you have the talent, no doubt about that. And the defense, particularly run defense, has played really well.
Yeah. Well, next thing we'll take a look at here is the Bills against the Rams. You've got the Bills going to Los Angeles. They are favored by between 4 and 4.5. What are we seeing from the model on this?
Yeah, no edge here either way. The biggest edge that we have, which we can get to in a minute, is the game later on, which I am positive it's going to be my moneyline underdog play of the week, which is the Chargers against Kansas City. But no advantage here either way. Rams getting 4.5 at home. I can't help but think, Brian, that the Bills are still a little bit overrated in the market. They've only beaten 2 teams with a winning record. That doesn't really count against the San Francisco, of course, which is a train wreck right now. So I kind of like the Rams here. I lean to the Rams getting the 4.5 at home. I love what Josh Allen is doing, but still, they're not a great offense. They have to be able to run the ball. And this is a big win, big game. Buffalo coming here to LA. I kind of lean the Rams in this matchup. Certainly you're rooting for the Bills, but I can't help but think I don't have the Bills in the top 3 of my power rankings. I don't. I just still have questions. They've looked good. They've won games they're supposed to win. But they're going to really win a game here. You're going to count the game over Kansas City that they won, I guess. But I still think the Bills are a little bit overrated in the market, so I'll take the Rams. But it's close. No advantage in the model either way.
Interesting. And the model does pick the Bills to win 26-22. I think the Bills, I feel differently than you, Mike. I think the Bills are one of the favorites here in the whole NFL. And I loved watching what they did to the 49ers, certainly Sunday night. That was fun. We talk about the 49ers. We might as well talk about this game against the Bears. This one's wild to me, Mike. The fact that 49ers are favored, the model's picking the 49ers to win 25-17. I would take the Bears all day long in this game.
Yeah.
And the points.
I think it's a pick against the Bears' run defense. I mean, now it's going to be Isaac Guerrero, and of course, God bless Trent Williams and his wife, who are going through some things off the field as well. But no Trent Williams makes a difference. If he can get back, that would be a big deal. Brock Purdy, is he healthy? I get it. It's just, is Caleb Williams ready with all the changes they've had to come on the road and get a win? That's really the issue. But it's fair. The line is 3.5, so you get that hook. It's a close one because I don't believe in the Bears that much. I think a lot of their points against the Lions was in the second half comeback. And if Gibbs doesn't fumble that ball, I think they run away and hide early in the third quarter. But I get it. I just still doubt Caleb Williams as a rookie coming here against a good San Francisco defense. But the question is Trent Williams, no McCaffrey, no Mason. Can Guerrero keep it going? There's enough questions here that I think the Bears are a reasonable side. That's for sure.
All right. And you mentioned the Chargers-Chiefs. That's an interesting game as well. You said this was your lock. Tell us about that.
Brian, they're going to win this game. Chargers are going to win this game. They should have won the first game against Kansas City. There was no Joe Alt in that game. There was no Rashawn Slater. So 2 massive pieces for a team that wants to run the ball. I get that J.K. Dobbins isn't playing, but they do have Gus Edwards. They have Kamani Vidal. Justin Herbert is really efficient this year, and the Charger defense is legit. I just think there's problems in Kansas City. We had our 2 biggest edges the last 2 weeks have been Carolina covering against the Chiefs and then the Raiders covering against the Chiefs. This is still a Chiefs team that is escaping games with pass interference calls, last-second field goals, Isaiah Likely's toe on the line in week 1 at the opener. It's just going to come back to bite them. It's a rivalry game. I've seen the Chargers play well. I do think there are a few coaches in the NFL that make a difference. Jim Harbaugh is one of them. Their defense is solid. Derwin James always able to limit Travis Kelce and play him well. I like the Chargers here to cover. I would take 3.5. I think they win the game outright. And as you see, our model has almost a 10% edge, about 9% right now for the Chargers plus 3.5. I've been circling this game. Talk about regression with the Lions, regression with the Chiefs as well. Doesn't mean they're not great. Doesn't mean they can't go to the Super Bowl. Just means this week they get their comeuppance.
Good stuff as always, Mike Randle. Anything that people should look out for on FTN coming up this week from you or elsewhere?
Yeah, we're covering all the sports here: NBA, college basketball, fantasy football playoffs are coming, so we have advice for that as well. It's DFS. Underdog has a tournament out now. If you do Underdog Fantasy, the playoffs, you can pick the players right now and have a playoff team. So there's always a ton of content. Join us here at FTN Fantasy, and we love sponsoring this show. You're the best in the business, Brian. We love having you here as part of FTN.
Very nice of you to say. Flattery will get you everywhere with me, Mike. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Same, sir.
All right. That was Mike Randle of FTN. And as I've said multiple times, folks, and I'll say it again, you want to head over to FTN Fantasy, use promo code HBAM, get your 15% off. You want to get the FTN Plus subscription that gets you DVOA, it gets you StatsHub, gets you access to the Discord channel, the betting model, all the good stuff. And I use it during the season. I use it after the season. It is fantastic. And you're going to see the rest of this show why it's so great as I show you some trends that Geno Smith helped me find by answering a couple questions that I'm going to play in a second. Before I get into that, let's talk about a bit of Seahawks news, and I think we'll just talk about a little bit of news in general. So first of all, as I mentioned, Laviska Shenault Jr. was waived by the Seahawks. They wasted no time in doing that after what was a just terrible performance against the Jets, like an inexcusably bad performance against the Jets. He's a veteran. This is his whole job for this team. Can't have it. So happy that they did that. I'm disappointed that they were not able to find a way, or he was not able to find a way to be a bigger part of this team. I think he honestly offers some things that I think this team needs. You see what JSN has done in yards after catch and being involved in the screen game. And Laviska Shenault Jr. has even more potential in those situations than JSN does, but can't get himself on the field, can't earn it, and he's no longer on the team. So I think that's a shame. And his career has just been not so great. For a second-round pick has just been a pretty bad career overall. And so now you look at D. Williams, and we'll see what happens with D. Williams. My expectation is that he will be either let go. My guess is he will be let go. They are more patient with young players than they're going to be with veterans, but I just don't see how you can continue to have him back there. And here's the thing. I mean, the guy that had the huge day returning kicks against the Seahawks from the Jets was a practice squad player. He was a practice squad elevation for that game. He hadn't played a game yet for the Jets all year. Those players are out there. If you just want a kick and punt returner, they're available. You know, those guys can be found on practice squads. Now, that particular player, the Jets now signed to their active roster, so he's not an option for you to go and sign. But there's another player on the Jets practice squad whose name's Aesop Winston Jr. He was with the Seahawks on their practice squad for multiple years. When he was back with the Seahawks in training camp, I talked to multiple Seahawks players on offense and on defense that said he had the best hands on the team. So he was someone who was taking punts. I think that he seems like a very logical choice for the Seahawks to go get. Go get Aesop Winston Jr., at least be secure in the fact that you're going to catch the football. And honestly, at this point, that should be the primary goal. I mean, go back to Freddie Swain. I mean, go back to people that just catch the football. I never thought I would be so desirous of just having someone who could catch the ball, but that's where we are, because every time D. Williams goes back to field a punt, I just am expecting the worst, and that's a sad place to be. I really like D. Williams, and I wish that this wasn't happening, but you just cannot do that anymore. So from there, I think we'll see that move probably made. The reason that we heard from the Seahawks that they're still figuring out it'll be over the next 24 to 48 hours. If they were just going to go in-house, I don't think that would be the answer. I think that they would talk about who the players were that were going to step up. I think they are scouring practice squads, and I think they're going to sign people. That's my expectation. They signed a guy a few years ago, and I'm forgetting his name. It was a very I would probably mispronounce his name anyway, but he had a great end of the season returning kicks. Just go and get somebody. So that's my expectation there. The other story yesterday is Mike McDonald and his wife Stephanie have been expecting. I think they're right around when the baby was expected to come, and sure enough, she is either in labor or it's going to be very, very soon. And so Mike McDonald did not do his afternoon press conference yesterday. Leslie Frazier stepped in. Don't know exactly when Mike McDonald will be back with the team. Don't know if he will be with the team this week against Arizona. So that's a big factor. I mean, first of all, I just, as someone who's has two kids of my own and remembers when we had our first kid, and just the absolute shockwave that sends through your life and through every hour, every minute of your day, even if you get help. Yes, he's got money and he's probably got family from his wife coming over and helping, and you can get all the help in the world. The person that you love, your wife, is going through a major medical situation. She is not getting as much sleep. She's needed. She's going through it. She's feeling whatever she's feeling. You've got to be, supportive there. You're also just your routine. Everything gets thrown out of whack. And you're in the middle of leading an NFL team in your first season as a head coach that's in a playoff race, going up for what is the biggest game of the season against the team that you're fighting for the division title against. I cannot imagine what it must be like for Mike McDonald and Stephanie. And so I wish them the best. I hope it goes really well. I hope the baby comes quickly and is a quote easy baby. We did not get blessed with an easy baby. Colic kicked in right away, and he did not stop screaming for about 6 months. But yeah, that's a big story. Not just because it's a cool thing for them and they're starting their family, but that's an impact for this game. So he is a huge part of calling plays. He is a huge part of the game plan on defense. He's obviously a huge part of everything going on across the team. Don't know how that's going to affect the team this week, and we'll find out. So no contact with the team today on Tuesday. Wednesday is when that typically happens, and we'll find out if he's available. So that's something to watch. And in his stead, Leslie Frazier stepped in, did the press conference yesterday, and they did not hire Leslie Frazier to step in as interim head coach should he be needed, but talk about a great option to have just available on your staff. Leslie Frazier's been a head coach. He's been through it. He is a sage, wise, veteran coach in the NFL. If you need to have a game coached by somebody other than Mike McDonald, I think you could do a lot worse than Leslie Frazier. So really curious to see how that goes this week, and whether or not Leslie Frazier gets the call beyond what he did yesterday for the team. So all right, let's get into the topic at hand. So the title of this show, this particular episode, is about the Seahawks offense facing different coverages. And I'm going to play you some sound. I'm going to go through some data. I'm going to talk to you about these trends, and we're going to talk about what it means, because right now the Seahawks defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. By almost any measure, it's at least a top 10 defense, if not a top 5 defense. And what's the issue? It's the offense. The offense is one of the worst offenses in the NFL right now. They are really scuffling. And the assumption is, they don't have the ability to pass the ball any longer. Well, there's some reasons why, and there's some differences happening in how teams are playing them, and we're going to go through that. Before I get to it, let me bring a little bit of a welcome return to the chat. Detail Oriented, who has been a member forever and one of our most generous members, says, happy holidays all. Love you guys. Hawks in first place. Love it. Brian, thank you as always for your awesome content. Can't express my appreciation enough. Hawks 27, Redbirds 13 on Sunday. Playoffs, here we come. Well, it is great seeing you back in chat detail. Hope you are doing better with all the stuff you've been going through. So, all right, let's first set this up for what caused me to start doing the research that I did, and then I'm going to share the research. So, first things first. This was Geno Smith after the game against the Cardinals the week before in the post-game press conference, talking about, this is actually a question about JSN's game, but listen to what Geno says as part of this answer. Let me make sure I've got the right thing shared. Hopefully this all plays well for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting open. He's catching the ball. He's doing a great job in the screen game. He's an all-around great player. And I just think, the way that teams are playing us coverage-wise, I feel like it's the ultimate sign of respect, man. They're just playing a lot of zone, dropping 8. We don't really get man coverage anymore. They're not really blitzing us anymore. So, he's going to be able to find those windows in there. And he does a great job at finding pockets in the zone coverage. And then if there's a scramble situation, he's always friendly. He always, finds me, and he, gets in the right spot. And I thought that helped us out today.
So that was Geno Smith after the Cardinals game. And while he's talking about JSN, you hear him say that teams are the way that they're playing us now is the ultimate respect. They're not really playing man anymore. They're dropping into zone. They're dropping 8 sometimes. And that was the first thing that piqued my interest. So I heard him. I didn't do research at that point. Then at the after the game against the Jets, once again, he said something that kind of was in a similar light. I asked, first of all, check out this fit. That's a fantastic coat. Love the glasses. Whole thing's working for me. But that's very New York, by the way. He is fit in the New York scene. But I asked him post-game about whether he thought the run game was making progress. Now listen to his answer here.
For sure, I thought the run game really led us today. Obviously, we made some timely, passes in some critical situations, but for the most part, we grinded it out. We had to run the ball. They were playing too high shell most of the game. They were playing a lot of zone, which is what we see a lot. And so when we can get up on those double teams and double the shade, double the 3 tech, and get Ken up to the safety, and get Zach up to the safety, great things happen. And I thought the receivers did a great job blocking in the run game, and I thought Grubb called a great game, and I thought he was patient and he stayed with it.
Again, what are we hearing there? They're playing a lot of too high shell. And for people that, everyone that watches this show probably already knows this, but too high shell just means that they've got 2 deep safeties. And so when you're splitting the field that way, you're taking away a lot of the explosive plays down the field. And what that does is it means that you're taking one of those safeties away from the line, and generally is going to invite teams to run the ball. And so that's why Geno's connecting these things, that teams are playing a lot of 2 deep. They're playing a lot of zone coverage. They are kind of daring the Seahawks to run the ball. And meanwhile, they are taking away these explosive passes. So let's see if Geno is right in what he's saying in terms of what the trends have been. And what I did is I went through and charted, thanks to FTN Fantasy, I charted what the Seahawks have done, what they have faced coverage-wise every week of the season. And I did it on a few different axes. And so we'll start by just looking at 1 high versus 2 high. And the first thing I want to show you is the trends there. So this is blue is 1 high, red is 2 high. And what you see here is a very clear trend line of 2 high shell increasing for the Seahawks to where now, and this does not include the Jets game, by the way, that coverage information is not yet charted on FTN. It'll come in a little bit later this week, probably later today. And I think this will go even higher potentially. But you're talking about a team that was facing 60% too high that was against the 49ers. And, you're seeing 50% plus in a lot of these games of too high defense. So I think Gino is correct. This is a trend that's happening for the Seahawks and what they're facing on offense. Next thing I wanted to look at is zone versus man coverage. This is wild to see. Look at the trend that we're seeing where the Seahawks started against the Broncos. They faced basically, 25, almost 75% of the coverage they faced was man coverage in that game. You take that trend line, you look at where you are now, you're talking about a team that's now facing 75, 85% zone coverage. It is almost all zone coverage against the Seahawks. They have not proven yet that they can beat teams out of it. So those are the first things I wanted to show, which was this is a team that is facing more too high shell and more zone coverage. And what does that mean? Let's take a look at what the implications of that is, because the next thing I wanted to look at is, okay, well, how does Seattle do in facing these situations? So before I even get into that, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. This is just weeks 8 through 12. Okay, so it does not include against the Jets. But what I did here was sort which teams in the NFL are facing the most zone coverage. Guess which team is number 1 in the NFL? Let me pin this to the left so we can see them together. Look which team in the NFL is facing the most zone coverages over the last, what is now 5 weeks, and it would be 6 weeks. 71% of coverages that the Seahawks have faced since week 8 are zone. That is number 1 in the NFL. The next closest is Miami at 63%. I mean, that's a massive, massive difference between what the Seahawks are facing, what every other team is facing. But you look at some of these teams that are facing a lot of that zone coverage. These are teams that have respected offenses. Miami's a little different this year, but still, now that they have Tua back, they've got deep, deep threats, and so people are looking to kind of take away those deep balls. San Francisco, for all their problems, still is a threatening team. Tampa Bay has been a very productive passing team. The Chiefs, obviously, the Rams, Minnesota, Baltimore, Atlanta. These are all teams that have pretty potent passing offenses, but none of them are facing 71% zone coverage the way the Seahawks have been. Now, the next thing I wanted to look at is, okay, well, when facing zone coverage, how are they performing? And if we look at EPA per target, let's do this. EPA per target, pin that to the left. All of this, by the way, StatsHub on FTNFantasy.com. I'm able to do this because I'm a subscriber. You can be a subscriber for less than $8 a month using promo code HBAM. So what is the EPA per target? Who's best in these situations? Oh, sorry. That's not what I wanted to do. Let me go over here. This is where I have this set up. So this is looking at when teams are facing zone coverage, okay? Which teams, and this is across the whole season, which teams are best in the NFL when facing zone coverage? Well, interestingly, the Seahawks are down here at 16th. So let me zoom in because I'm sure it's a little hard to see. But the number one team in the NFL is Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Washington, Buffalo, Detroit. These are the teams that are best in the NFL against zone coverage. The Seahawks aren't worst. They're 16th. They're very average. They are an average team against zone coverage. Let's see, and let's look at success rate, because success rate's another measure here. And for my money, I kind of like it better. What's their success rate against zone coverage? Well, again, 15th in the NFL, the Seahawks, 48.7% success rate against zone coverage. Now, let's take the filter, let's move the filter, and let's actually see against man coverage. When the Seahawks are facing man coverage, how do they perform in those situations? Well, Seattle is 8th in the NFL when facing man coverage. All right. So number one is Detroit, Baltimore, Tampa Bay. A lot of these same teams: Minnesota, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Atlanta. A lot of the same names. But the Seahawks are 8th in the NFL from a success rate perspective. From a EPA per target, they've not had a good EPA year, so EPA does not like them as much, but I think they are 16th from an EPA, but they are 8th from a success rate. So point being is they are a much better team when facing man coverage than they are facing zone, and they're not facing much man at this point. So that was a couple of things that I wanted to share there. There was one other piece that I wanted to share with you all on this front. So let me get back to this. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. So here's another view, and this is going to be messy. So forgive me for the messiness, but this is a similar look at StatsHub. You're able to download as a CSV and kind of get a little more geeky with some of this stuff. But what I wanted to do is look, this is sorted in order of which teams in the NFL are, when they're facing zone coverages, have the highest EPA per dropback. Okay. So it's sorted in descending order, like Baltimore, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Washington, Detroit, Chargers, LA, whatever. All these are the best teams at the top. All these are the best teams in playing zone as a passing team when they're facing zone coverages. What I wanted to do is see if there are some specific trends that imply that there's maybe a pattern to what makes a team good against zone coverage. For my first, guess, it was, well, I when I think about zone coverages, I think about passing more underneath. I think about more involving the running back. I think about check downs and things that are more yards after catch related, because you really can't go over the top as much. So I wanted to see. And so what you see here is a color coded column that is just about yards after catch per attempt. And what I did is, green are the highest, yellow are kind of middle of the road, and then red are the worst. And so I wanted to see what we're looking for here is there any grouping? Are we seeing like patterns where there's a lot of green toward the top? Because if that's the case, that would mean teams that are doing well, again, remember, this is sorted in descending order, again, of teams that have done best against zone coverages. So if you start seeing a lot of green at the top, that's an indicator that maybe part of what makes them good against zone coverage is this particular tactic. In this case, yard after catch per attempt, you do see Tampa Bay and Detroit, two of the best teams. They're over 5 yards after catch per attempt against zone coverage. You do see some of the worst teams in yards after a catch per attempt toward the bottom. So there is a little bit of a pattern here of who are the teams that are finding ways to take checkdowns, to take screens, to take things that allow you to gain some yards after catch. Seattle, in this case, they're in the middle. They're in the middle. 3.6 yards after catch per attempt against zone. Green Bay is number 1 in the NFL, 5.4, 5.5 really. It's a lot of yards per catch after attempt. And the other thing that I wanted to look at here, a couple other things, is like I mentioned, checkdowns. So this is looking at checkdown rate. These are actually percentages, even though they don't really show that way. This is checkdown percentage. And what you see is a pretty high concentration of green in the top half here. What this means is that the teams that are best against zone are one of the highest checkdown rate teams. And so you see Cincinnati is 24%, Detroit's 23%, Pittsburgh, 28%. But interestingly, the Seahawks, as we look across here, they're 15%. So the Seahawks are one of the lower teams in the league in terms of checking it down when they're facing zone coverage. 15%. How much of that is Ryan Grubb? How much of that is Geno Smith? Don't know. But this is, to me, one of the things that I want to understand why, when teams are facing zone coverage, part of the solution is to check the ball down. It is to take the 4 to 5 yards. Why that's not happening. So that's something I'm curious about. The other thing here, this is play action percentage. And no surprise, you get another pretty high concentration toward the top of the teams that are best in zone coverage against play action against zone coverage. And so what you see here is, Detroit is 33.5% against play action against zone coverage. The Chargers, 30%. The Rams, 31%. The Seahawks are down there at 12.6%. I mean, that is the second least utilization of play action in the NFL when facing zone coverages. So that was another thing that for me stood out and is an issue. And so that's, checkdowns, play action usage, those are things that stand out to me. I wanted to look and see if there's anything else that jumped out. I think those are the main things I wanted to share there. But the other thing that you have to do against too high coverage, shell coverages, you've got to be able to run the ball. You have got to be able to run the ball. And so the Seahawks have increased their use of the run game over the last few weeks. I've talked about this before, and let me pull up the stat again so I can have it ready to share with you all. But I track a bunch of things about every game. I chart a bunch of things about every game for the Seahawks. One of the things I chart is percentage of plays that are running plays. And the Seahawks, in the kind of the 5-game slide where they were playing Detroit, they lost to Detroit, to the Giants, to the 49ers. They beat the Falcons, but then they lost to the Bills. In those 5 games, the Seahawks averaged 30% of their plays were running plays. 30%. Okay. They only had one game over 36. They had, and sure enough, it was against the Falcons. Now, granted, they were winning, so they got game script that was in front of them and positive. Detroit, they were losing the whole way. They kind of had to pass. But the Giants, they only had a 19% run rate in that game. The 49ers, they got back into that game. They 27% run rate in that game. The Bills, 36%. So this was a team that was just not even trying to run the football over the last 4 weeks, last 4 games, I should say. 42% of plays have been run plays on offense. So while it is not ideal that they have not been able to run effectively, they are committing to the run. And you've heard on this show, I asked Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb a few weeks ago, how do you get a run game? Is it chicken and egg? Do you have to commit to it, or do you have to show success with it? And for Mike McDonald, it was very straightforward. You got to commit to it. And that's what they're doing. Coming out of the bye, they are committed to running the football. Now, the percentage of yards coming from the run game are not commensurate with the increased percentage of run plays. So I also track what percentage of their total yards are coming from rushing. To give you some idea, in the first 4 games of the season, the Seahawks had a 35% run rate, and 27.5% of their yards were coming from the ground. In their last 4 games, they've had a 42% run rate, 27.8% of their yards. So you've gone from 35 to 42% of your plays being running plays. You've only gone from 27.5 to 27.8% of your yards coming from the ground. So they're running more, but they're running less effectively. And that's kind of the growing pain situation we're in. What does this all mean? What does this all mean? From my perspective, it means a few different things. It means that we can complain about why the passing game isn't looking better. We can moan about the offensive line or a bunch of other things. The fact of the matter is the Seahawks have to get the run game figured out, period. Like, that is it. Like 100%, like at least 90%. They've got of the solution here is they've got to get the run game figured out. They've got to commit to it. They've got to be able to punish teams for having too many men in coverage. And the way you do that is you run the ball down their throats. So they're going to see that again this week. They're going to see that again. Let me pull back open that sheet I was just using to check and see what the Cardinals did in their game just a week prior. So yeah, the Cardinals were in too high 53% of the time. They were in zone coverage 78% of the time. So part one of this is they got to keep running. Even if they're running their heads against the wall, they got to keep running the ball. And I think they're getting close. 2, they've got to start getting some more underneath opportunities and yards after catch plays and being okay taking 3 to 7 yards on the ground and occasionally getting a bigger one. But I mean, consider when it was 3rd and 26 for the Jets. What was the play that got 24 yards, almost lost the Seahawks the game? When I asked Mike McDonald about that after the game, he talked about that a zone got drained. What does that mean? It means that the players that were meant to be in that area followed other receivers the way you're not supposed to when you're playing zone coverage, and it allowed a huge open space. Well, the reason I bring that up is that can be what happens in zone. There can be vacated spots if people, if you draw the attention of the defense and force them to cover people, it can open up more opportunity. You can overload. One of the things that happens with zone is that you can overload a side of the field and flood a zone with so many players that there's not enough people to cover them. That's another thing that you can do. This can show up in the screen game because if you're facing a zone coverage team, they're not going to have as many players on that side of the ball, and you're able to dedicate more blockers over there than they have defenders. This is not rocket science. I don't think this is, I could go in and tell Ryan Grubb something he doesn't already know, but we're not seeing it. So like that's where I personally want to start seeing some change. Is this has got to be a team that starts becoming more effective against zone coverages, and that comes in the form of running the ball better, and it comes in the form of being able to take some of these underneath yards after catch sorts of plays, plus what you've already got from JSN, who's an excellent receiver against zone coverage. Those things are additional, like, finding soft spots. I think Noah Fant can be part of the solution. Kenneth Walker, like those are the guys. Just to give you some idea, I'll pull this up. I've done this before, but the latest splits for the Seahawks, who does well when they're facing zone coverage versus facing man. Let's talk about that. So when they are facing receiving versus scheme. So let's take a look at this. Let's just look at the Seahawks. All right. This is something that, again, you can get ftnfantasy.com, use promo code HBAM, will get you all this kind of great info. So when facing zone coverages this year, the top receiver for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker, has a 78 grade. Jackson Smith and Jigba has a 76 grade. DK Metcalf has a 72 grade. So he's been pretty good against zone as well. Zach Charbonnet is more effective in those situations again. And then Noah Fant, 69 grade. Noah Fant against man, 49 grade. So you get a much better version of Noah Fant against zone. I will point out, Noah Fant had been gone for the last month. So one of your zone beaters, so to speak, has not been in the lineup. And so that could be part of what helps as well. AJ Barner has not really popped against zone coverage. So just something to kind of keep in mind. I'm curious if we look at yards after catch per reception. Interestingly, the Visca Chenault Jr. is the best. He's 10 yards after the catch, no longer on the team. But then it's Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. So, those guys should be part of the solution here. So that's the main thing I wanted to kind of go over with folks. I think it's a pretty big, I think this is the story for this offense to figure out. This is what they've got to work through the rest of this season. And they got to do it starting this week against Arizona. This was not, the Seahawks offense scored how many points against the Cardinals? I mean, they scored 9 points against the Cardinals 2 weeks ago. Kobe Bryant had a pick six for the others. So you ended up with just 16 total. I don't think you should feel comfortable with 16 being what you need to win this game. I think if you look at the Falcons, they have scored, 22 or more in 4 of their last 5. The only one that they didn't is against the Seahawks. And I think that's probably as well as you can play against this Cardinals offense. I don't think you should expect them to be held to 6 points again. I don't think you should be expecting them to be held to 50 yards rushing again. I think you're going to see some changes there. So the offense has to pick it up starting this week. I think it's possible. I think that Cardinals defense is certainly playing well, but I think there's opportunity against that. And the Vikings were able to punish that Cardinals defense a number of different times. So I will be writing Tail of the Tape later today. I'll publish that over at hawkblogger.com. We will do First Look tomorrow, where we get basically a look at this rematch and what's changed since the last time these two teams played and what are going to be the keys. So we'll do that tomorrow. We'll have Real Talk Wednesday night, all that good stuff coming up. And If you haven't already, give the show a like and click subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. If you have not, headed over to jkboots.com. You're going to want to do that. Use code HawkBlogger. There's great sales still going on. These are going to make an amazing gift for anybody, for yourself, for somebody else, especially anyone that spends a lot of their day on their feet. If they are, a plumber, if they are a construction worker, if they're a logger, if they're a firefighter, anybody that's spending a lot of day on their feet. These are unbelievable, custom crafted, handmade boots by a Spokane-based company. I have my pair. They are right here. They are so heavy, man. They're like really legit boots. As you can see, I'm starting to wear them all the time, so they don't look quite as brand new because I'm wearing them a lot. Use code HawkBlogger. It also gets you, I'm getting today the version that is the Seahawks themed boots. So I will be able to show you guys what those look like by tomorrow's show. Use code HawkBlogger. You get a chance to win a pair of those Seahawks themed boots just for you, custom made for your feet. And we've already given away 2 pairs to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. So 2 Northwest firefighters have their feet protected so they can protect our forests. And once we get to our next milestone, we will give away more. We're working on, I think, what's going to be a really special giveaway and donation coming up real soon. All right, folks, appreciate all of you. Thank you for supporting the show. If you haven't gone over to patreon.com/hawkblogger, consider doing that. Joining the party. The conversation continues on the Slack channel. I will be traveling down to Arizona later this week and cannot wait to see what is a really, really cool game coming up for the Seahawks. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. I am Brian Hemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at HawkBlogger. This has been episode 254 of HawkBlogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.